circuit bending. It's chaos. So, but I'll show you two poems right now that I'm going to do, and one of them is called LA, Los Angeles Laundromat. Okay, so this is the washing machine. This is how you sign washing machine, and this means to mingle, like you're at a party, you know. And another sign is white. This is white, but this means a white person. Okay, so you might see that in the thing. Okay, so LA Laundromat. We all come here, waiting, wanting anxiously to become clean, to become new and improved. Colors, brights, blacks, whites, but these whites need not be separate, and you know all colors bleed, and all the colors and the faces are always changing places, but the pain remains the same. Different people, different color on our skin and in our clothes, and all of us together make this living, fleshed rainbow. Forced into the machinery of society, we go spinning through the cycles and the changes of the years, washing clean our sorrow with the water of our tears. Oh, okay. Thank you. That's okay. I'm glad it's done. Okay. Yeah. Super. Okay. I'll send it. Okay, thank you. Okay, here we go. I'll do one more poem. Last night I fell and I twisted my ankle, so this is just not a good day. I was supposed to have like a little choreography, but this isn't working. My ankle's all messed up. Doesn't matter. Okay, so this poem is called Ruth and Me, and it has to do with a woman called Ruth St. Denis. And I'm not sure how many of you know, but at the beginning you had Isadora Duncan with the k, and then after that a lot of people know Martha Graham. But in the middle there was a woman called Ruth St. Denis, and when asked, Miss Ruth, why do you dance? She said, the gods have wanted that I should dance, and in some mystic hour I will move to the unheard rhythms of the cosmic orchestra of heaven, and you will know my wordless poem, and you will come to me. That is why I dance. It's a grand dame, you know? So, this is my response to Ruth, why I dance. Without understanding why, my poetry spills forth from me, spilling, splashing, clashing against the galaxy, flitting between truth and fantasy, searching for similarities, revealing my insecurities. I create, I compose in defiance of those with closed minds and little heart, extolling their evil, intelligent, greedy for more than they need, ignoring while others suffer, believing their God wants them to rape you. No God wishes humans harmed. No God makes man more than woman. And no God wants war. We know this. We all know this. Yet wars wage while we watch the TV, the paparazzi, virtual reality, waiting for someone to do something, waiting for the right moment. Come on. Look around you. You are not alone. We are with you, and together we are mighty, can make miracles. But we need you. And those unique values, those God-given gifts, so grand and glorious, given to you, to give to us. Trust. follow those natural goals. No need to do heroic deeds with mere words. You, me, we merge, become one, share the tragedies and the ecstasies as it should be. That is why I dance my poetry. Okay, I'm going to do this one more piece, and this is Andy Ben has helped me to be here today. He bends with my husband. They're partners in crime, and since my husband isn't here, Andy helped me with all this stuff that isn't really working. So circuit bending is really the only person that usually knows how to operate the instrument is the person who bent it. It's kind of that quirky. But Andy made this. It's a voice changer, and he's been housing them in these old-fashioned cigar boxes. And this box is called Short Story. That was the name of the cigar. So let me see. Oh, what happened to the? I had it plugged in. Okay, we got another one. So I wrote a piece called Short Story. A story. A story. A story is told. Short, sweet, tragique. The story is told again. The same story. History. Her story. Again, the story is told. Again, the story is told. Listen. They're telling it to you. Okay, so Andy was going to help show some of the stuff, and so I'm going to let him.
Can you just tell us what you were the device you were using, maybe?
Well, Andy built it, so I'll let Andy tell you about it.
If only after you tell us that was an amazing device. That's
cool.
A series of filters.
Okay, yeah. I'm Andy Ben. How's it going?
Thank you for being here.
Great traffic, huh? Just awesome traffic, really. Okay, well, so this is the short story. It's a series that I'm doing. It's rehoused kid voice changer. So this is like a mini voice changer. Originally looked like a megaphone. You can get them pretty cheaply, under 10 bucks. Runs off a 9-volt battery. It's placed in, this is Arturo Fuente short story. It's like a limited edition. It's a short story because I don't know what gauge cigar it is, but it's a limited edition release, and it's like this trapezoidal box. So yeah, there's 3 settings normally. So those are the 3 settings. I added them. Potentiometer.
Linear potentiometer. The linear potentiometer acts as this.
It also has body feedback. So your body is acting as more resistance to the circuit. But it has a feedback. It also, so it's standalone because it's got the built-in mic from the original voice changer, right? Then I put a line in off of that, so you can use this as a processor. And then this is the line out. Also has cutoff, and some of them, I did a series of 5 of these. Some of them have piezo pickups, so they can be played as percussion instruments in like the Afro-Cuban tradition.
Oh yeah, and when I do this, sometimes in performance, we put it on the floor, and then I tap, and the vibration.
Don't put that away. I had a question or two, if that's okay.
Sure.
So you really this is an electronic. This is a piece of electronics you really bought. You didn't just fabricate it entirely.
I didn't fabricate it. No.
Okay.
No.
Because I would believe you if you did. Wow. So okay.
Yeah.
So it consists of a circuit of just a basic.
Yeah. I mean, this is the circuit. It's running off a 9-volt. But all of this, it's like I added to the circuit. I just expanded upon the circuit. The thing is, it's like if you're doing series of toys aesthetically, like this is a series aesthetically, so it starts off as a vocal processor. It becomes a general processor because of the line in, and then it's also, I'm developing work. So if it was a quartet of voice changers / processors, I could use that quartet versus a traditional quartet. String, woodwind.
So let me interrupt you. So when you say it's a processor, that means you can take something, you can push a signal through that.
Yeah.
Not just a voice. That means, so this device accepts your voice, which you talk into through the microphone, but also you can get a digital signal into it that's a digital, or it could even be analog, right? It doesn't matter what the signal
as long as it's like an audio signal.
It's an audio signal, whether it's analog or digital. So someone can be playing the violin, you could have a pickup, or anything.
Right.
I'm just thinking.
And that's kind of the idea, is that if it's quartets running in parallel, and it was a 3-movement piece, it would be one of the voice changers, one of whatever the quartet would be, probably string, and then the 3rd movement would be, the amalgamation of both. So it's like both aesthetics meeting in one piece in, a traditional 3-movement sonata form or whatever, trio, whatever.
And I noticed that this. Do you use computers at all?
Jeff does. Jeff does a lot of his layout in computers.
Okay.
Just
So,
layout, but
he's using like Illustrator and Photoshop. He actually creates like a drilling template.
Okay.
I'm not like that. I hardly write anything down, and
you're just building you're building these filters as circuits and filters as you go.
Well, yeah, I wanted a series of them because we're going to have an art show next year at the Moyer Art Gallery, and it kind of fits the same aesthetic. It's like reappropriation of certain things and certain aesthetics into a new narrative.
my husband makes little booklets like this for each toy, but he's got most of them with him. now in North Carolina. So, and this is called a Wiggles guitar.
Oh yeah.
And these are what we use these a lot for the parade, and then we plug them into here. And
so here's the drawing. You guys can pass this around. This guitar we actually use for a workshop. So that's the accompaniment drawing with the extra components. So, you know, we have a sign-up sheet too. We'll be teaching more workshops.
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Does anybody have a pen? Do you have a pen?
I absolutely have a pen.
There's a legal pad right there. Yeah, no, that's it.
I absolutely have a pen. So there you go, Paul. There you go. Actually, start that going. Chris, can I ask you another question while you Twitter? Sure. You got it.
And if you want to march in the band with us, then I have some cards here. Pass them around if you want. Take one if you want. I have to. I'm going to be interpreting for Ed Bagley Jr. at 2 o'clock at the convergence.
Wow.
So that's the Wiggles guitar.
Chris, I may be asking sort of a dumb question, but forgive me. My knowledge of electronic music was very, very brief. When I was in high school, I did a lot of work in French poetry by a woman named Louise Forest's father was Edgar Forest.
Wow. It's going back.
Yeah, so that's I'm really dated. So, but
Frank Zappa's what Frank Zappa man.
Okay, right. So really, a lot has happened, obviously, to electronic music since Edgar Forest.
Sure. I mean, what Jeff and I are, I mean, that's why I'm wearing the elbow patch jacket, though. It's like, what we're trying to do is, like, use that through line. All of that stuff, though. Whereas the school at Darmstadt, Stockhausen, you know, Cone Studios, John Cage and the New York Movement, Robert Moog, which is the fest that he's at, Raymond Scott, Don Buchla, and the creation of the San Francisco Tape Center, which is now housed at Mills College, which is the beginning of the Cal Arts Electronic Music Department with Mort Subotnick. All of that, in a way, kind of informs not just what we're doing, but, you know, dare I say, popular electronic music. You know, Flying Lotus is probably like the biggest act in Los Angeles, and he's sampling a None Such recording done by Morton Subotnick in 1968. You know, on an early prototype of a Buchla synthesizer. That album was released on a major electronic label through Europe. You know, so it's like, I think electronic musicians nowadays all kind of know that history, even though, you know, they're doing new stuff.
Right, and they're keeping that's in their mind, whether conscious or unconscious.
Well, yeah, it's a lot of it's a hardware thing, you know.
That was my next question. I know that Moog synthesizers are actual filters, they're actual hardware filters, and I guess now you're getting into filters that are software.
Right.
And how does if that's not too far off topic of what you're doing, and again, I don't appear.
Too much computer software generated
that's okay.
sounds.
No, that's my
comes from the bed.
It's a different.
That's all I want to know is the difference. That's just yeah.
Well, VST plugins have been, you know, it's in the last 10 to 13 years that VST plugins have really, you know, I mean, if you think where they were 10 years ago versus where they are now, it's like, you know, it's one of the things that I'm trying to work with. It's like the Kurzweil idea of the him expanding the idea of the technological singularity that he keeps talking about. What is it, like 2030, the year 2030, 2040, the technological singularity. Kurzweil became rich from designing synthesizers, and now he's working, you know, more on a think tank basis, but it's that idea of the technological singularity. And
I'm
all
not
of
sure
this,
what the technical. I'm sorry.
Google it. That's
okay.
a good one to Google.
Good.
See, and that's the whole point. That's the whole point of the technological singularity. I can say Google it to you, and you know exactly what I mean. And 10 years ago, if you said Google it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the rate in which technology and human thought is synthesizing.
Right. Before you move on, just so why don't your interest? You're not working with software filters is because you
just never did, or you think hardware filters are more interesting? I don't want to dwell on a point that maybe isn't interesting to you, but
well, I mean, it's, you know, there's, you know, you can paint on a canvas, you can paint in Photoshop. What's the difference? You know what I mean?
Okay.
Aesthetically, technically, experience-wise, what's the difference? What's more valid?
Right. Right. Okay. So it's that level. Okay.
So it's kind of like, you know what I mean? It's like, at the end of the day, you know, and this is definitely more like painting on a canvas. You know, it's like smelling oil paint versus like sitting in front of a monitor.
Yeah.
You know, but they're both. I mean, the thing that we're doing now, we got this other band, Elbow Patches, going. It's like the thing that we're trying to do now is the integration of both. Can you integrate both? Can one inform the other? In a live context, and can that narrative be like self-evident as part of the performance? Maybe, maybe not. You know what I mean? It's like
my husband Jeff is started out as a classical cellist, and so the cello, and then he did keyboards, and Andy does keyboards, accordion, trumpet, and so they're going to try to use all of that, you know.
Because the whole thing about circuit bending is like there's been no real integration with, you know, there are bands like Radiohead and Beck, and you know, there's tons of bands, A-list bands that have used it as a texture. But none of them have used it, you know. I say Mark Mothersbaugh is probably the closest thing when he does his soundtracks. There are certain things on Mark Mothersbaugh's soundtracks that are coming from a circuit bend toy, but you know, it's Mark Mothersbaugh, he's like Mr. Devo. Of course, you know, you can see that happening. But the idea is to like try to figure out the information flow back and forth. Recursive, I'm getting into this idea of recursive media, like the Mandelbrot set. But the Mandelbrot set is like a closed system of
Fractals.
Yeah, of recursive infinite complexity, right?
Yes.
And then you add that to another algorithmic system to create that infinite complexity. It's basically it's like media as a central narrative for branding. So if I say, you know, because this is one thing, it's like the personalization of the corporation, right? This is one thing that's coming up. If I say Mattel, it's nondescript. But if I say Barbie, what's the narrative associated with that branding? You know what I mean? Just like, you know,
and I'm
Pikachu.
Gonna take off.
You're going to take off? All right.
Just, you get to do whatever you want.
All right.
I have to validate here. I'll be back in 5. Very interesting. I know that Joe is patient. We're just going to go. This is great stuff. Mandelbrot set.
And you can,
Girdle Escherbach.
and if you want to look at
Yeah.
this stuff.
That's right. That's right. Hilbert.
And that's your sandwich over there.
Okay, great.
Okay.
So I'm going to try to do a demo on this thing.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for your time. I'm sorry.
I'm just going to do a quick demo and then, so this is the Casio MT240, made in 1989. Polyphonic synthesizer, tone bank, rhythm bank, MIDI control. So like, you know, so you could use it as a MIDI controller. 1989. He calls it the Blue Mini. She took the cover sheets. She said he does booklets for this, so I'm gonna attempt to play this. I couldn't. I think juju has a lot to do with this stuff. Electrical juju. So sometimes it works, and sometimes it don't. So we're gonna try to give it a go. So you guys can hear like a basic demo. Okay. 2 fingers crossed. Okay, so. Okay. That's the normal demo. That's 8 beats 1. And then I start bending it. That's pretty much it. This is not my instrument, so I'm kind of going in blind. At least it worked. It wasn't even working earlier. This one, we had a whole other piece. Feel really bad about it. I set it up, and I mean that's kind of how circuit bending is. If you're putting chaos into systems, it's not necessarily going to work the way you want it to work. Yeah, it is the nature of chaos. Well, I guess that's it. I guess I could do. I guess we could do Buddy over here. Let's see. This guy. You guys all know this guy? Pikachu, right? So, he probably won't work either. Come on, buddy. Oh, here we go. That's pretty much it. I mean, have everybody got any questions or anything like that? Comments?
Yeah, we just got here, so you have to do the whole thing again.
Oh, really?
Did you repeat?
Is there one thing you haven't done that you pushing the envelope?
Oh, what do you mean on this stuff?
Yeah.
As far as stuff that I'm trying to build that I haven't built yet?
I want you to show us something that you haven't shown us that you're really interested in that might not even work.
Well, this one's pretty classic. I mean, let's see here. This one's classic because it's like, so you know, we have all these matrices that we're making for categorization. So it's like toys are, you know, there's a certain demographic for each narrative as a toy by age group and by type of toy. So this, you know, the narrative behind Sesame Street is that it's educational programming, right? There's some kind of educational aspect to it. That being said, I mean, the images of Sesame Street make corporations billions of dollars, like outside of just educating kids through Corporation for Public Broadcasting. This type of toy, that, you know, I would put in Sesame Street as educational most of the time, but this is just like a sound effect, you know, it's got little ducky sounds and stuff. It's, like, it's not really, but as an electronic musician, it's great. It's like, here's a toy that's like got built-in sound effects. So I put a rotary switch on it for retriggering. That's pretty good. I don't know. I like it. It's very classic. I taught at LACMA. Taught this a couple years ago at LACMA, and a little girl made one of these.
Why is it classic?
Well, branding-wise, Sesame Street is pretty classic. Because 1969. I mean,
yeah.
You know, we're 40 some odd years in on that one. So that kind of by itself, this is pretty well documented on YouTube as being bent.
Okay.
You know, there's probably 3 or 4 files on it. And that's the thing, it's like the context of, because of YouTube and stuff like that, the context of circuit bending is like a DIY underground community. All that stuff is being informed by social network, YouTube, blah, blah, blah. So the only thing is, it's like, this is the only one that I've seen that's got this, you know? So
and that again is...
This is the rotary switch for retrigger. So if I see something that it doesn't have in the video and I can add to it, you know, then it becomes a dialogue almost.
Right.
With other benders.
Right.
Okay, well you did this, well I'm going to try to do this. Okay, I just blew it up, so I can't do that.
And you've got to find another one of necessity.
Yeah.
If you blow it up.
And that's another thing, that because I'm trying to take all these like concepts, and eventually I'd like to, you know, it's like informing the audience kind of. I've been really into Basquiat lately, and it's like, I see this stuff more as high art, fine art, because of, I mean, there's a couple different word concepts. It's like entropy, chaos, like a system, there's a process. But it's like, if you view all of this stuff as disposable, so most of the stuff we're getting at thrift stores, secondhand.
Sure.
So in this design paradigm, we're not even end user. We're beyond end user. So we're post-consumer by reclaiming it, because the end user is that first user, brand new out of the box, sold during Christmas time or whatever. So we're post-consumer on that end. But then this is where you get the recursion of media, because it's like, not only that, we're taking that post-consumption and then regurgitating it back through the process of circuit bending, and hopefully making new media with it. So,
I had a question.
okay.
You know, you mentioned Mandelbrot sets.
Yeah.
And recursive sets, and I think as soon as you say that, I think the record that breaks the record player.
Right.
I'm wondering if
It's exactly what this is. It's the, you know, it's that allegory, pretty much.
So you're building records that break the record player.
Pretty much. I mean, but that, you know, in that allegory, that act itself is, you know, this is where things, you know, because it's like you're working in the paradigm of music or noise.
Right.
And this is where Cage comes into it, because it's like, okay, well, let's just get back to sound. You know what I mean? And the whole thing is to be able to play with all of it. You know? As a composer, have the music end, and then, like, right when I got you where I want you, start freaking you out to the point where you want to leave, and then bring it back. You know what I mean? It's like, there is this, you know, that's the whole thing. It's the recursive nature of feedback. So any kind of feedback, you know? Get off my cloud. Keith Richards' feedback. That was to piss off parents. And it did it, you know? It was recursive in that sense. And I would say almost all feedback, social change, anything like that, you know? Any of that type of recursive action is, in a sense, gonna incite some type of chaos. I mean, I think that is one of the natures of feedback. As a concept, in entropy, in thermodynamics, entropy is the loss of data, you know? So feedback as entropy, as loss of data, in the confine of like thermodynamics. So it's taking these really big, kind of almost cosmological, Gödel, Escher, Bach, mathematical principles, and throwing them in to the art that is primarily using that, you know. That's what's happening. We're taking a closed system and we're trying to open it up.
Closed system, yes. Can't turn his bag in. Are there any other questions? Oh, I was hoping you could just spend another minute. We've talked about all these really big ideas. You've shown us some really amazing things. Maybe if you could just show us some atomic units of what you use to make this stuff. I realize an atomic unit is the Sesame Street toy, and that's self-explanatory, but do you have some parts that make up how you build these mechanical filters? If you could just quickly just show us a couple atomic units of that you as building blocks?
Sure.
Just
Where's that notebook?
Just because it's the opposite end of the record that breaks the record player. Yeah, let's get the notebook.
Okay, so these right here, it's like whatever the added components are. It's like, so everything, you know, they all have the FCC warning on them. It's like, you know, so that's the first thing, is break the FCC. Violate the FCC by putting a 1/4" output on it so you can plug it into anything. And then most of this stuff, you know, if it's a controlled system, there's diagnostic, you know, if you see computational terms, there's diagnostic, there's binary function, you know, the system in algorithms is set up on a grid in a matrix for function. And one of the main units inside of that is clocking in all computation, like what is the clock speed. So this kind of stuff, a lot of the clock speed is based off a small microchip off of 1 or 2 ceramic resistors. Now this is really where the rubber hits the road, because when I started circuit bending 10 years ago, ceramic resistors were still pretty prevalent. I don't know what you guys know. Color-coded ceramic resistors. You guys, everybody else knows what I'm talking about, right? Since then, most of the stuff has become surface mount. And this is another concept that I want to get into, kind of in the post-consumption element, but also like workflow. Workflow as far as technology, invention, dissemination, automation. So the transistor was developed in America, and now it's being assembled in China by a printer, a circuit printer. It's not even being assembled by hand anymore. So it's like that labor force in China is slowly being automated, which is the same thing that happened, you know, post-World War II. The automation began here. The difference is that the technology has changed. This goes back to that technological singularity. That all of this stuff kind of has that. So resistance and clock speed is one. All of this stuff, you can see it's set up on a matrix. It's like a bending matrix. A lot of the things are daisy chained together to like do cumulative feedback. And some of them you can go backwards on, like this. I can get the beat going. I can take it out, take it way out, you know, and then bring it back. That's one type of toy. Some toys can't do that with. One of the keyboards that I have, that it's kind of like my kitty cat, can't do that with. Some of them, the algorithmic process of linear function just doesn't exist. You're so far outside of it. You know, so that's part of it too, as a performance element. So yeah, 1/4 inches, a lot of knobs, a lot of rotary switches, which is like a multi-pole switch on a knob. This thing's got a photo cell in it. So it's like, this is a resistor based off of light. Body contacts. Yeah, body contact arrays that you can get feedback on.
And skin has resistance.
Right.
Your skin has resistance. The wetter your skin is, the greater the resistance, or is it the opposite?
Well, I think it depends on what you're doing too, because there's, you know, depending on what the device is and how it's made, it's either less or more or cumulative. Because some of the, I have this little Hello Kitty toy where you can get like a telemetry thing going, so it's like a theremin.
Wow.
So at that point, you're creating a field with the toy. So depends. All of this comes through trial and error. It's all trial and error. There's no handbook. I mean, there is a handbook, how to circuit bend, but you can't go and like find, you know. We're trying to do some schematics, and when we do workshops, you know, we do stuff that we know will work.
I really want to thank you. This is fantastic.
Sure. Sorry. I mean, we're, like I say, Jeff's been out of town, and
Oh, I
kind of.
everyone's impressed. This guy's a fucking genius, right? Yeah. You know, everyone's complete attention. You've been very impressive. what I'd like to do is, Joe, why don't we switch so I can help Andy break down and we can just sort of seamlessly transition over to you. So if you want to just pick up, you got your books over there, and maybe everyone can just switch focus. And Andy, I don't know if you have to blast off immediately. If people have questions for you, should they stay on this side of the room while Joe's talking and catch up with you? Or
Yeah.
I can buy you a sandwich. I'm going to help you load up, so I can buy you a cup of coffee. So if you want to wait around, maybe a little
coffee would be great.
Great, fantastic. Okay.
Thanks a lot, you guys.
Okay.
A little black box.
The last thing you were using.
Oh, the Sesame Street?
Yeah, with the Sesame Street, whatever that black box.
That's just, that's just like a little project kit that you can get. It's just like a classic housing. You can get a Radio Shack for like $2.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. But you built it from the parts.
Yeah, I built the, every circuit bender kind of has their own method, process.
You don't sell that particular.
No, because it's just for that toy.
Oh, it only.
So how do you, so you basically didn't have to actually create it based on what possibly the
exactly.
the
It has to
electrical
be
use, because otherwise
compatible
it'll
with that.
burn it out.
I mean, there's certain things that
This is electrical. I mean,
right. There's certain things that I do in repetition, and
Do you get shocked?
no, it's all pretty small voltage.
Yeah.
It's like 9 volts at most.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can get a shock off a 9 volt. But yeah, I mean.
I didn't get you cream or sugar, but there's cream or
perfect.
sugar outside.
That's perfect. Thanks a lot.
Thought you needed it.
Thanks a lot.
And I don't know if Mona Jean got you a sandwich or if you need one, I can get you one. I think it's over here.
Yeah, it is.
I'll put it right next to your coffee. Okay. Let me quickly turn the camera around. I'm so sorry, Joe.
I love that. You just wanted
Look at that. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you. We're gonna switch gears, and this is such a. I wish you could see this composition. It's really good light. I like these windows.
good, yeah.
It's really that's 7th Street, by the way, everyone. That's 7th Street. Joe, tell us everything.
Well, hello everybody. My name is Joe Osterly. I wrote a book called Weird Hollywood. I'm also a co-author of Weird California and Weird Las Vegas. One of my subjects is in the room today. You may figure out which one he is. No hints. But I thought, it being the season, I might give a couple of spooky, weird Hollywood stories. So if you'll indulge me, I don't have any toys or noise, so I'll try and read in a spooky voice. And then I'll read the first one, and then the other two, I believe, I'm just going to try and go off the top of my head. But the first story is Suicide Bridge. You're probably very familiar with it. There's a bridge out in Pasadena. And it begins like this. Her movement is unsettlingly smooth. Her demeanor serene. Barefoot she glides along the cold concrete, emotionless. Long flowing robes dance beside the woman in silent rhythm as the cool night breeze commands her silky garments to gambol and frolic in a spirited frenzy. Approaching the parapet, she climbs effortlessly to the top. Without uttering a sound, the midnight maiden plunges off the 150-foot high bridge, only to vanish before reaching the unforgiving pavement below. This is just but one of the many ghost stories of Pasadena's infamous Colorado Street Bridge, better known by locals as Suicide Bridge. Although there is no official count, it is said that close to 200 people have committed suicide from the 1,480-foot long overpass since its erection in 1913. Less than 2 decades after the completion of the bridge, 95 people were reported to have plummeted to their death. Why are so many despondent souls drawn to the spot? Some blame the ghost of the original construction crew member who accidentally fell over the side of the bridge, landing in a deep vat of wet cement below. To this day, his haunting cries for help are whispered to have the power to compel the hopeless to join him in the afterlife. Of all the tales of self-destruction the bridge has to offer, none is as well known as the story of the woman who, in a fit of Depression-era melancholy, tossed her infant girl off the railing, then immediately leapt toward her untimely demise. The mother died on impact, but the child cheated death. The newly motherless youngster was found hours later, crying, scratched and bruised, in the dense branches of the nearby trees. Legend has it, the baby girl's mother still roams under the bridge, painfully searching in vain for the innocent life she hoped to reconnect with in the hereafter. That story always freaks me out.
The infant, they just interviewed her in the Pasadena.
Is that right?
Yeah, Jonah was about 3 years ago?
Yeah, something like that.
They just, Frank Girardeau, who's their features editor, just thought it would be a really good idea to get a bunch of get some photographers, and just bring her back to the bridge. 1982.
Wow.
Maybe she's not quite 80, but they just, let's just bring her back to the bridge.
Yeah, sure. A lot of fun memories. I'm sure.
Frank Girardeau is a bit of a macabre sense of.
Wow. Well, if you have that, if you have a link to that, I would love to.
I will have Kim send it.
Okay.
To you. Yeah.
All right. Jesus. Yeah. That's frightening. Another story. How many people here remember Johnny Whitaker, actor?
I'm related to him.
Real nice guy. Was that? You're related? Is that really how?
Well, I'm a Jack Mormon, and he's a Mormon family. All the redheads are my family on that side, but he's kind of our clan in Idaho and Wyoming.
Oh, wow, that's very cool. He's a very, very nice guy. For those of you who don't remember, he played Jody on Family Affair. He was in Sigmund and the Sea Monsters, Sid and Marty Krofft. Yeah. He was Tom Sawyer, right?
Yes.
In Tom Sawyer. And Jodie Foster was in that movie as well. And he did a lot of stuff for Disney too. Anyway, he told me a story about how he believed that the ghost of Brian Keith saved his life one day. Do you know this story?
No.
Okay. Well, he says that I'll refer back to this for dates, but he said that Brian Keith and him had really had kind of this uncle and nephew relationship, and on the set, and he felt that Brian Keith had advised his mom, how to handle his career and stuff like that, and they were very close during the shooting of the show. After the show, Brian still had a pretty decent career, and Johnny was doing very well in his teen years, so their paths would cross. But I think it was 1997, and they hadn't spoken in a while, and Brian Keith had contracted cancer. His daughter had just died from a drug overdose, and Johnny thought, well, it's been a while, but I should give Brian a call, extend my condolences, see how he's feeling. And he said that, and Brian Keith, for those of you who may not remember, was a cowboy kind of actor, stuntman. He grew up he started off as a stuntman and kind of transformed as an actor. It was interesting that he was one of the first kind of movie stars to actually make the jump to the small screen. Most people were trying to do it the other way around. Brian Keith, whether it was because he marched to his own drummer or they just made a very lucrative gave him a lucrative contract for Family Affair, he decided to go to TV. But he was always a cowboy at heart. He was always a stuntman at heart. So Johnny calls up. Johnny gets Brian's phone number in 1997, right after his daughter passes away from an overdose. And says, hi Brian, Johnny Whitaker, I just wanted to call and say hi. And then Johnny says, Brian is typically gruff man, and goes, who the fuck gave you my phone number? and then he laughed, and Johnny laughed. And they had this very nice talk. And apparently, it was a heart-to-heart talk, and Johnny realized how soon, how many days left Brian had. His doctor had given him 5 days. And it was right after his daughter passed. It was a very painful cancer. Johnny talks to Brian. They hang up. Johnny feels good about it. And a few days later, Brian Keith put a gun to his temple, pulled the trigger, committed suicide. Just couldn't take the physical pain and I'm sure the emotional pain of his daughter passing. Well, the next few days, Johnny said that he was getting phone calls, from all over the world asking, for quotes And what are your memories of Brian Keith? And he's talking. He's on the phone. He's up, and I don't remember what freeway he's saying. He was on, but he was on a freeway. He's driving. The phone rings. It falls down. He goes to pick it up while he's driving, and by the time he gets up, he sees there's a 18-wheeler perpendicular to him. So he slams on the brakes, and he says, he panics, and he says what he hears is Brian Keith, and he hears the voice. It's only 2 days prior. I think he talks to him on Tuesday. Now it's Thursday, and he hears Brian Keith says, let go of the wheel, kid. Duck, cover, roll. Now, Johnny Whitaker, I'm sure, had been on the set with stuntmen before, but duck, cover, roll is the mantra for any stuntman, especially in a car crash kind of situation. And he said he just got down on the floor well of his car. The car went through, right under the 18-wheeler, came out the other side, and he said he woke up. I mean, I don't think he passed out or anything, but he got out of that, and he said he never felt so warm in his entire life. And he was positive that the ghost of Brian Keith had given him stuntman advice and saved his life. I actually ate lunch with Johnny as he's telling me that story. It was the weirdest thing. Very, very just spooky, and to hear him, hear it coming out of his mouth. And the guy does a great Brian Keith impersonation, by the way. He really does. And it was just the most freaky thing. I've done a lot of ghost stories. I'd love to see a ghost. I never have. But I truly believe that everybody who tells me these stories is absolutely on the level. I've never felt like I've been snowed. My girlfriend, as a matter of fact, I've told this story before. She grew up in Orange County down in Santa Ana. And she said that her and her sister, when they were little kids, they shared a room. And they both had small beds, kid beds. And every night before they'd go to bed, the ghost would raise them up to the ceiling until their hands hit the ceiling, and then the ghost would level them down. I mean, my girlfriend, her sister, all the girls in the family swear that this ghost actually existed. And what Jen told me was that by the time she got to be the age to go to school, she told the story about how the ghost would lift them up and touch the ceiling to one of her friends, and her friend said, there's no such thing as ghosts. So Jen went back to her sister and told Jolie, somebody at school told me there's no such thing as ghosts. That was the last time that the ghost ever lifted them. But the ghost apparently did other weird things in that house too, but they never got the late night bedtime rides. And the side note, I don't know, have any of you ever gone to these autograph signing things on the weekends and stuff like that? They're pretty fun. That's actually how I met Johnny. I knew that he was going to be there. But, I mean, they're just very interesting. I got met a lot of people that I wound up interviewing in the book. But one of my favorite stories is, I'm walking around, I meet Johnny, he's sitting there with Holly from Land of the Lost. And there's just all these people, and I'm like, wow, this is so cool. Ed Begley Jr. was over there selling, bleach. Ed Begley Jr. bleach or something like that.
It's gotta be eco.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what it is. And I've always been a Julie Newmar fan. That's, as a young boy, I knew I liked girls when I saw Julie Newmar as Catwoman. And I know all the Catwomen are hot, but Julie Newmar was doing it for me. But anyway, I walked by, and there is Lee Merriweather. Now, I felt I really wanted to interview Lee Merriweather, and she was gorgeous. And I'm like, and this woman is 72 years old, at the time I'm walking by her. And I go to say hi to her. Hi, my name is Joe Osterly. I used to write for the National Lampoon. Now I'm doing a book for Weird Hollywood, Barnes & Noble Publishing. And I'm like, I can't do it. She's too, I felt like this little pimply-faced kid asking the homecoming queen out for a dance. I had to circle this thing a couple of times just to get the nerve to go up to a 70-year-old woman and ask her. I mean, she was stunning. So finally, 2 circles, and I go up to her, and I go, hi, Miss Merriweather, my name is Joe Osterly, and I used to work for the National Lampoon, and now I'm doing it. And then I look at her, and I go, "You're gorgeous." And that's not me. I mean, I've never like done that unless I'm calculating, you know, how to pick up a girl. But I mean, and then she kind of like looks up and smiles, and I started back. I go, I'm sorry. My name is Joe Osterley. I used to work for the National Lampoon. Now I'm doing a book for Barnes & Noble Publishing. It's called Weird Hollywood. And seriously, you are breathtaking. And I just couldn't get it out. And then at that point, her nostrils kind of flare. Now, I've seen the Batman movie a few times, the old Adam West Batman movie, and she plays Catwoman there. And I remember she's Miss Kitka. And when she is trying to seduce Bruce Wayne, her nostrils flare, and I'm like, oh my God, she's into me. Just what I'm thinking. But like, she said that she didn't have any weird Hollywood stories. You know, I assume you don't get to be that gorgeous. I mean, she was Miss America in 1955 or something like that. Obviously, she has weird Hollywood stories. She just didn't feel like sharing them. But and I left and thinking like, this is the most heterosexual thing I've ever done. I've tried to almost pick up a 71-year-old woman, and leaving, I'm thinking, she probably thinks I'm gay, because what guy walks up to this 71-year-old woman and says, "You're breathtaking, you're stunning"? It was just a very funny aside. I'm sorry for that, but thank you for indulging my aside. One other story that I did for the Weird Las Vegas book that didn't make the book, but it qualifies here for Weird Hollywood. Anybody remember David Strickland, an actor? He was in a show, Suddenly Susan. It was actually 1999, I believe. Yeah, it was a while ago. Yeah. Well, that's the story. David Strickland was on a show called Suddenly Susan. That ran for 4 seasons, and that's not the scary part. That was a terrible show. But the show was Brooke Shields, Judd Nelson, Kathy Griffin before she really became famous, and David Strickland. I think he was 29 years old. He was like the lovable, goofy guy in the office. He went on I guess he had a history of drug abuse. He was engaged to Tiffany Amber Thiessen. From what I understand, she had given him an ultimatum. You know, I mean, he had fallen on and off the wagon a number of times. She had given him an ultimatum. You know, either you stay off the drugs or the wedding's off. He was diagnosed bipolar, and for whatever reason, wasn't enjoying the side effects of the medication. So he stopped taking the medication, and then wound up going on a 3-day trip to Las Vegas with Andy Dick.
Oh, no.
So, yeah, everybody laughs because everybody knows that's not a good thing. So he went on a 3-day Vegas binge with Andy Dick. The two were seen at Gower Gulch and topless bars and stuff like that. Towards the end of the night he died, police said that he spoke to a prostitute at the Oasis Hotel, or Oasis Motel, actually, which is right across from the Stratosphere, and it's really in a kind of seedy area of Las Vegas. And the guy's, making NBC money. I don't know what kind of money he was making, but he's pulling down enough money he doesn't have to stay at the Oasis. The Oasis is kind of known for the alley next to not an alley, it's an abandoned parking lot next to the Oasis. And you go there during the day, and you see broken bottles of alcohol and syringes and all that kind of stuff. You also see guys walking around with sharpened sticks. These are just homeless guys, and that's their weapon. And they walk around with these bum sticks, is what the locals call them. But they just have these sharpened sticks. And I ran into these guys before. It's a strange situation. So I'm doing this story. I go to the Oasis Motel late at night. They said he died in room 20, and it was sometime between 2 and 4 in the morning. What the prostitute said to him, though, the police said, the prostitute said, your life is going to take a sudden change. And it was about 4 hours before he actually committed suicide. So what winds up happening is he goes into room 20, ties a bed sheet around a beam, hangs himself, and they say that room is haunted. I went out and talked to a custodian on the grounds, didn't speak English. I don't remember exactly where he was from, but he was a very, very religious man. Just telling me the story scared him, you could tell. But he kept saying, I'm a very religious man, I'm a very, very religious man, but I promise you, if you go near room 20, between the hours of 2 in the morning and 4 in the morning, you hear a man crying, help me, help me. It's freaky. And I was there around that time. It was weird. I wound up going later on because they wanted some video footage for the book. I went in during the day, walked around, and just for the heck of it, I opened up room 20, and it was open. And yeah, it's not the kind of place that you really should be going to anyway. I mean, it's just filled with ne'er-do-wells. And I'm in there with a camera, and when you're in there with a camera, it's kind of a movie camera, it's kind of singular focus. So it's almost like I'm not there, and I'm walking around like this, and I walk into the room. I didn't see the beam, which was interesting. I don't know if they took the beam out, but the beam wasn't there. But I do have video footage of the room itself. I have video footage of the room itself, and it was just creepy, very creepy. Yeah, the side note to that was my girlfriend was in the car, and she's in that terrible that side area where all the vagrants hang out and live. What I told her was, it was noon, and I'd been around that area. I don't think it was a bad place at noon. But what I said is, hey, look, if there's any problem, I'm right next door. I've got my cell phone. Just give me a call on the cell phone if things get dicey. So she's in my car in this abandoned lot with all the heroin addicts and everybody hangs out, and I'm breaking in to David Strickland's motel room, videotaping stuff. When I come out, I didn't think I was there that long, but Jennifer certainly thought I was. I come out and I turn the corner and I bump into this homeless guy with a stick, a sharpened stick. And I actually have that on video camera too, but I'm like just walking and I bump into a guy and he looks at me like he's going to stab me with it, and then he realizes that he's being taped. And he just kind of puts his head around it and puts his head down and walks across the room, walks across the street. So I get to the car and open the door, and Jennifer's cold to me, to be, put it bluntly, put it politely. Jennifer's a little cold. And I go, what's wrong? And she goes, that guy was staring at me. He was trying to get into the car. And I said, why didn't you call? And she goes, oh, let me show you what happens. She hits my phone, and I didn't take my phone out of the car. So she's calling me, and she's hearing my phone ring inside of her car. If I ever write a horror movie, that's a great scene. So, but anyway, those are my Halloween stories. But what I really want to do is introduce my favorite vampiric accordion player. And,
can't be me.
It's you.
Because why?
Ladies and gentlemen.
Because I appear from the pages of the book. From the actual pages, I was two-dimensional. Because when Mr. Osterly took pictures of me, he flattened them out on a page, reducing me to nearly non-combustibility, except if you burn the book, which is not a good idea. But then I would emerge from the pages in 3 dimensions, right? This is kind of like psychic bending. I just wanted to make that comparison. I found that Mr. Ben's presentation was very extraordinary, except I question the morality of making a Pikachu sound like it sits been eating beans. I don't know. Is it right? It is right. When the great Cod, who made, in Spotsylvania, where I come from, we have a different belief system. I'll stand in front of the canvas of the camera. The revelation that took place on August 18th, 1997, after ingesting a rather large vegetarian pizza in the presence of the Russian Madonna, which led the Count upon his couch of marital discord in Mar Vista, the city of revelation, to be revealed unto him the 12 tenets of the faith and no landlords. And then later on, as the years progressed, we had more revelations. For example, normally you don't talk about religion and politics, but this is an open crowd. I can see there's open minds. My mind is so open, there's nothing in it, actually. I leave it that way intentionally so that air would come through with its wafting of ideas. And the thought, the revelation after the 12 tenets that came upon the count was simply that the universe, and we're all part of this universe, as you understand and you all know very well, was created by a force. This force in the Middle Ages, you see the letter C, right? It had a little line in it. This is the way they wrote in the medieval text. Originally it was a C. So the world was created by the great God, right? That lives under the sea, that made fish eggs, then fish, then monkeys, then man. Smokesylvanian evolution, keep it simple. Stupid, right? Kiss. You cannot disprove me, or prove me either. But these are thoughts. Deep thoughts, but not very deep. It's just that if the universe came from the great God, we're all in good shape, because as long as we keep the sea happy and keep the mercury out of the tuna, we'll be okay. Okay, now we get into deep politics. In Spotsylvania, we had a situation a long time ago that was a real problem. We had an evil dictator named Hempel the Hump, who took all the tax money from the people, and he built palaces to his own liking, and this and that. He did horrible things. I won't get into them, but the people were suffering. And then along came Flush the Flegel, and he led the people to revolt, and then the people was absolutely revolting. So what happened was, they came and stormed the Tower of Asheville. They took Hempel the Hump, where he was, collecting the loot and this and that and burning it, cut off his head, and then he gained power. This was the capital of Spotsylvania, by the way, was Glipsh. This was the first Occupy Glipsh movement, you see. And then every year after that, as a Spotsylvanian custom, when the country did exist, the country actually left. The people, my homies in Spotsylvania was very, very wise, and they realized the weather was too inclement, so they moved the country brick by brick, stone by stone, and tree by tree to parts unknown. We think maybe the South Pacific, where they're singing under coconut trees, and they whack them on the head as they fall, in the manner of Isaac Newtonovich, who said that they would start up there and come down here. He thought it was apples, but coconuts, and it hits your head is worse. This would break your circuits. I'm not kidding. Anyway, where was I? I was at the beginning, and then I came to the middle, and now I'm coming to the end. The story was, every year they would make an effigy, like a sculpture. There was a talented bunch of people, the Spotsylvanians. They would make like a sculpture of Hempel the Hump, put it on a mop stick, and jump up and down the bed, on every bed in Spotsylvania, to celebrate the victory of the people and the fact that they wouldn't have to pay such high taxes anymore. And they would blow the squeeble. Everybody know the squeeble? Squeeble's an instrument that goes like this. Oh! So when I get to this part in the song, which is called The Salvation of Glipsh and the Destruction of Hempel the Hump by Flush the Flegel. That had a long name for the song. You may all blow on your imaginary squeebles. Okay, thank you too much. I will play it. In the town of Glipsh where I was born, the Glipshnicks used to dance around the bed and hit the head of Hempel up with scorn. For Hempel is the hump who lost his head. For Hempel is the hump who took the loot. And the people on the street, it wasn't cute. He took the dough from poor folks in their shacks and claimed it's a fair and just no tax. I have to the hump, must be cursed. He made us all go from bad to worse. He took our cash and lit it all to burn, and Apple gave us nothing in return. Entails and glitch a mighty soul who took the situation in control. His name was Floosh the Fleagle, he was great. He made the glitchnicks understand their fate. They rose together as if just one man and stormed the tower of Asheville with their hands. A battle fiercely fought, then was won, and gave the people hope that they had won. And for the hump must be cursed. He made us all go from bad to worse. He took our cash and lit it all to burn, and Apple gave us nothing in return. Liberated glitchnicks dance around, sing proudly to the Squeeble's piercing sound. Ow! 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 Remember, I instructed you to do this. Ow! Thank you. Chopped Apple's body into little bits. That glitchnicks had all kinds of benefits. And now there is a monumental truth in the town of Glitch and my lost youth. And Floosh, his smoke Sylvania's great hero. Now Apple's even less than zero. Apple, the humble, let's be nice. He made us all go from bad to worse. He took our cash and lit it all to burn. And Apple gave us a nothing. Apple gave us a nothing. Apple gave us Apple gave us something in return. Thank you too much. Well, I'll do one more. After the revolution in Smoke-Sylvania, right, after the country was destroyed, I, Count Smuggler, decided to come to where the action was, and this is, of course, the Hollywood of the California, right? To become a talk show host, which is the greatest calling any human being can have. Imagine that. You sit there like Leno and the Carsons and what's the other guy named? Letterman. Thank you. You sit there and you listen to people babble on about basically nothing, and you collect millions and millions of dollars. I figured this was the greatest way in the world to make some loot, you know, the Letterman, Leno loot, the 3 L's, and then send it back to Smoke-Sylvania to rebuild this godforsaken country. Okay? It didn't work out so good. I became a public access TV host, and if you know anything about that, not only didn't it pay, but it's now defunct. They closed it because the time and the Warner and all these guys, they didn't need it anymore. Their government says to get rid of it. I hope I zip my fly up. Sometimes I don't, but okay, thank you. I just had to check. So, I came to the Hollywood of the California expecting a lot of great things, which I experienced. It's a great place. And I came here to the athletic club. I want to be an athlete now. It's such a nice place. I'm trying to figure out how to become an athlete and become a member or something. But here we were in Smoke-Sylvania. We was very, very progressive. About 600 years ago, we came up with the Versatzgewand. You remember the Versatzgewand?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. He writes some weird Hollywood. I think the weirdest thing, Joe, beyond a doubt, this is even weirder than anything in your book. I, Count Smuggler, was invited to an actual Botox party in a doctor's office where they had hors d'oeuvres made of sushi and cheeses and wine, and then they would have somebody in the chair and they would shoot Botox while everybody sipped. I think that's the weirdest Hollywood story I ever seen, right? And I witnessed this. Can you imagine? Anyway, the Versace one was like what you call here the television set. But we did this so many hundreds of years ago, it was before electricity came about. So my homies, who was basically potatoes of the couch, especially the men, the women went out in the army and they plowed the fields and stuff, but the men would sit there. And the thing is, since we had no electricity, in order to watch our favorite shows, they had to pump with their feet to keep the Versace on going. This is why, you know, we stayed hardy, and I'm 496 years young and that kind of thing. And the rest of us too. Eventually the electricity came, things got a little rougher, you know, for your health. The Surgeon General said, you know, he actually said pump with your feet, but nobody listens. They just remote control it. The other thing is that we came up with was another great invention a long time ago, the VVV. Right? You all know the VVV? No. Hey Joe, I thought this was a modern technology. The VVV, the World Wide Web! We was internuts before internutting was cool. I'm not kidding you. And then we had one other thing. We had a sport. Now we're all adults here, right? This was called bat ball. Yeah, we had this Smoke-Sylvanian bat ball team. We would actually catch these bats, right? They was flying around, and we'd bring them back. We'd freeze dry them, and then we'd remove the testics. And we'd have the sons of pitchers hurling the testics at the guy with the bat, they called him the batter, and he would whack it with the freeze-dried bat out of the ballpark, home run, that kind of thing. You call it baseball here. But I told you this because there's a reference in the song to that. This is the Hollywood of the California. I'm sure you're all great singers. You can sing along with me at the chorus. It's very, very simple. You'll catch it, even without me explaining it. This is called the Hollywood of the California. It also makes reference to several dead people, but it really doesn't matter because in our minds they're still alive. Back in Smoke-Sylvania, everything is groovy. They're always playing bat ball, watching old-time movies. They're happy and they're peaceful, industrious, hard-working. Some are busy building dams, some are so they're joking. Ay, 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 ay. That was the famed chorus. And you'll leave the homeland and sail across the ocean. Everything is different, feels like it's in slow motion. No one can convince you, even though they warn you. Everything is different in the Hollywood of the California. Ay, 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 everyone's an agent there or wants to be an actor. The girls are really fabulous thanks to the great Max Factor. They love their plastic surgery, their breasts stand like volcanoes. But about that Sunset Boulevard, all those insane notes. Ay, 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 ay. I wanna be a talk show host like Oprah Winfrey. I'd lose weight and gain it back. The tabloids would skin me. I'd interview great people like Bill Clinton, Liz Taylor, Whoopi Goldberg, Baby Schwarzenegger, Norman Mailer. Ay, 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 ay. Anybody wanna dance now? Light that's burning strong in the Hollywood of the California. Who can say it's wrong? Trees of celluloid grow in fields of videotape. Movie stars and several items. That Hollywood is great. One more time. so much. Thank you, Joe.
If you want to read more about Count Smokula or any of the stories that we've shared today, I brought a few books here. Please feel free to leaf through them. If you'd like, I'd be happy to sign them. They're $20 each. They make a great Halloween present. Give them out to the kids at the door.
I got CDs too, if you don't
That's
mind.
right.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah, I was driving around last night listening to the Counts. What was it? Mr. Snail, but your own albums. What are some of your own albums?
Authentic Sounds of Smoke, Sylvania, and the one I have here, which I will sell at a bargain basement rate of $10. Smoke, Sylvania. In my mind, this was an actual official Grammy submission. Last year, it was on the short list to win a Grammy Award. Thank goodness we didn't win it, so we can stay on the ground. But the record is cool. Thank you.
All right. Well, if anybody wants to just swing by, leaf through this thing, I'd be happy to hang out for a little bit, and happier if you want to buy one. Thanks. Our pleasure.
I'm going to run Andy up to his car with all of his equipment, and I'll be back soon. If you want to talk to Joe, or just, I'll be back, or you want to mill around or disappear. I want to thank everyone. Little change of venue. I don't know where I don't know if we're coming back next month. I'd like to. We'll see. We'll keep everyone posted. Everyone, thank Andy again. He's packing.
Yes.
And of course Joe and the Count. So cool. And it's been a lot of fun. So if you're here when I'm back in 10 minutes, I hope to catch up with everyone. And if not, we'll see you next month. Next month, I'm going to be doing a wrap up the salon with a walking tour of Walker and Eisen building. Walker and Eisen built the Oviatt across the street and the Fine Arts building, and we're going to go into both of those, and there are a couple others. We're not really sure. It's all going to fall into place, but and that'll wrap up the salon. And if we start here, that'll be really easy because we'll just be across from the Oviatt, and if we start. Because they wouldn't let us do it. Okay, so.
Thanks for everybody for showing up. Thank you very much.